This is the Honor 200 Pro, quite an interesting mid-ranger. A few months back, Honor went global with this, launching it in multiple markets like Europe, the Middle East, India, but there's not really been a lot of organic, non-sponsored content about it on YouTube, and I've had a lot of you guys ask me if I could cover it. So I've been using the Honor 200 Pro as my primary for over 2 weeks now. In this video, let me give you my honest take on what I feel about this phone. Less studio hardcode stuff, more actual facts. Now, if this is your first time here, or in case you just can't remember, my name's Ash, you're watching C4 Retech, and let's get started. I like how the 200 Pro looks. The back has a marble-esque look. It's glass, it's got a slight texture. The finish is matte, so though it is slippery, it happens to be very resistant to fingerprints and smudges. Now the same can't be said of the sides though, since this is glossy plastic. Now what I have here is the Moonlight White. Honor also offers this phone in Ocean Cyan and Black. The 200 Pro, it's got an IP65 rating, which is not bad. And there's also an IR blaster, so if you wanted to control appliances around the house, you can. Now the camera array, we've seen rectangles, we've seen circles, we've seen octagons. Now here we get an oval. So it looks unique, and also the actual sensors used, they're pretty good too. But hold on, we'll get to that in just a bit. Now this phone is 8.2 millimeters thick, with the display on the back curving inwards. It kind of feels slimmer than it actually is when you hold it. It's also not too heavy given it weighs in at under 200 grams. Now that's despite Honor packing in a substantial 5200 mAh silicon carbon battery. And the battery life was excellent, easily lasted me a full day even on days where I was using the phone pretty heavily. And then there's the 100-watt charger that's included in the box, which gets you a 50% charge in under 20 minutes and a full charge in about 45. The Type-C port here though, it sadly cannot do video out, it's USB 2.0. That said, Honor have included fast wireless charging support at up to 66 watts, and there's reverse wireless charging too in case you wanted to charge any accessories in a pinch. Guys, recently I covered a bunch of Honor devices, the Magic V3, the Magic VS3, the Magic Pad 2, and there's been one common question I've received from a lot of people, which is, does Honor support Google Play? Now yes, Honor used to be a Huawei sub-brand, but back in I guess 2020 if I remember correctly, Huawei did sell Honor off, so the Huawei ban does not apply to Honor. So any Honor device comes with full Google Play support. Anyways, moving on, let's now talk about this display. It's another highlight of this phone. It's a 6.78-inch curved AMOLED panel. It's 10-bit, supports HDR10 and has a 1.5K resolution. So it's a pretty sharp panel with a 437 pixels per inch pixel density. The sides are curved, but thankfully the palm rejection stuff, it's been well implemented, so I didn't notice any issues in my 2 weeks with this phone. Honor claims a brightness peak of 4000 nits, which is for HDR. In my testing, we got about 700 nits on manual and 1200 nits under auto mode. So using this panel outdoors on a sunny day, it's just fine. Under low light, there is 3840 Hz PWM dimming to reduce eye strain. Now here are a couple of cons worth mentioning. One, this is not an LTPO panel. Now given the battery life is already excellent, I don't really see this as a major con. But the other one, that might be a little bigger. The fact that Honor does not mention what they're using for protection. Switching back to pros, there are stereo speakers here which sound pretty loud and rich. Here. So it didn't sound as loud as the iPhone, right? Honor does give you a 200% option. So here we trade a little bit of fidelity for loudness. Have a listen. Now the Honor 200 Pro, it runs on Android 14 with Magic OS 8 on top. Given this phone has solid specs, so Snapdragon 8s Gen 3, up to 1 TB of UFS 4.0 storage, up to 16 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM, it's no surprise that it's fast and responsive. Honor promises 4 years of OS updates and 5 years of security patches, which is good. Now there's also some extra functionality they've baked in, like Magic Portal, which lets you drag stuff to the side right into another app. And then there's Magic Capsule, basically Dynamic Island for Android. Now, before you jump in and say, hey, but Honor did it first, I understand that's what Honor wants you to think, and that's what a lot of people have been parroting, but just look into the actual details before you say it. Now, yes, Honor did kinda sorta do this first with the Honor View 20, but what they did, take a look at it. By the hole punch for the selfie camera, I don't remember if it was when you're making a call or when you were hitting record, there was a kind of small notification that went around the hole punch, which in a way is a precursor to the dynamic island. You could say that, but what they have here today, that's definitely not that. That's more iOS-esque than anything else. Now, personally, I don't really care who copies who, as long as me as an end consumer is getting a good experience. That's all I care about. And here the experience is good. Dynamic Island or Magic Capsule, whatever you want to call it, it works very well. Very useful to swap tracks, etc. Who copied who? I'll let you guys decide. Implementation though, pretty good. Anyways, there's also stackable widgets that Honor calls cards. There are also a lot of always-on features, including Apple-style always-on, which is blah at best. But you do get the partial on option, which is what we are used to on the Android side of things. And overall, the user experience, excellent. Now, given this is the 8S Gen 3, which is supposedly a detuned version of the 8 Gen 3, I mean, that's what everybody who's covering the Honor 200 Pro keeps calling the 8S Gen 3, which I found very strange because I've never seen people refer to it that way outside of this one phone's coverage. So why is everybody using that particular phrase? I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments. Now, what I do know is the 8S Gen 3 shares a lot in common with the 8 Gen 3 when it comes to CPU. It's basically a lower clocked version. It's got the same core split up, but where it varies drastically is with the GPU. The GPU performance slots in somewhere between the 8 Gen 1 and the 8 Gen 2, and that's something to keep in mind if you're looking at buying this phone for gaming. Also, Honor's been pretty average with the cooling. The Honor 200 Pro, it doesn't get uncomfortably hot or anything, but it does throttle. Loses about 30% of its performance after 20 minutes of being pushed. Now, I wouldn't call it very bad, but for this chip, you can't really call it good either. Anyways, with that said, let's get to optics. We have a triple camera setup to the back. The primary is a H9000 sensor. Basically, it's the OmniVision OV50H that we've seen on phones like the H50 Ultra and the iQOO 12 that's either been rebranded or slightly customized for Honor. So it's a large 1x1.3 inch sensor which has been paired with the optically stabilized f1.9 lens. As you can see, under good light, it does really well. Excellent colors, very good dynamic range, very detailed images. Even under low light, I really liked how this camera held up. The noise is kept minimal and there's still a lot of detail retained. All the images you're seeing here I shot on the vibrant profile. There's an authentic option that ups the contrast and adds a little vignetting. And then there's natural where the colors, they just aren't as punchy. With video, you can shoot up to 4K 60. Footage turned out fine, stable, detailed, good dynamic range. Secondary is a 50 megapixel Sony IMX856 paired with an f2.4 lens that's also optically stabilized. Now this is a telephoto lens that allows for 2.5x zoom. It's mainly supposed to be used for portraits, though with regular zoom shots, even 5x, 10x shots, they seem pretty usable. Now here's where the studio hardcode stuff comes in. That's the branding Honor's going for. Basically, it's 3 filters, supposedly with AI. Not sure how much of an impact that has, but it's a pretty cool bunch of filters for portraits. Moving on, the third camera is a 12 megapixel ultra-wide with autofocus. It loses a little on dynamic range, but it still shoots quite detailed shots, and you can even shoot macro given there is autofocus. The colors aren't perfectly matched, but they're pretty close. Now to the front, there's another 50 megapixel sensor. This is paired with a depth sensor. Personally, I'm not a fan of adding an extra depth sensor, going for the pill-shaped cutout, but the selfie camera setup, it seems fine, it gets the job done. You don't get the hardcode filters here, but the regular portrait mode seems well implemented. And you can shoot 4K 30 selfie video, which was once again quite good. Anyways, now it's time to talk about pricing. To be honest, at launch, I feel the Honor 200 Pro was priced a little too high, especially in Europe. Now in India and the Middle East, the pricing was a little more reasonable, but still, compared to the competition, I think they should have priced it lower. Now, I think that's the reason why the 200 Pro is already being sold at 8,000 rupees under launch price on sites like Flipkart. So at the current reduced prices, I'd say the Honor 200 Pro, if it fits what you want to do, if you value those excellent cameras, basically whatever the positives of this phone are, if those are things you value, then it's a pretty good buy. Now, if the price were to drop a little bit more, or if you're finding it on sale at some point, then I feel it's a must buy. It could potentially, it has the potential to be best at its price point if it were priced a little lower than what it's currently selling for. So say at 45,000 rupees Indian, it would be a killer deal. Now anyways, that's my take on the Honor 200 Pro. What do you think about this phone? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Ash out.